All right, we're here. We're in it. This is the Buried in the Bones podcast, episode 002. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been thinking about this for a few years now, a couple of years. I've only been in Nashville a few years, but I remember specifically being inside of the Jiu Jitsu Academy upstairs in the weight room. And a few of you guys who are listening may have been there in that moment. But we had a really hard training session, and I've always been intrigued about self exploration, how I can use my body as a tool to navigate problems. But in this time, during this training session at Artista, it was awful. I think I programmed it, and it seemed like something about the community and everyone just really diving in and supporting each other. It really made me realize that this is something that I wanted to do. And so, how am I going to do that? Well, we'll get to that because there's a story, and some of you know about it. And if you don't, then you're going to figure it out very soon. But who am I? Bo Crisp, originally from Knoxville, and I've been in the strength and conditioning community for about 6 years now, and I've been a trainer for about 8. So, not all of that has been what I would consider elite expert level training, but I would consider my last 4 or 5 years pretty high level strength and conditioning. And with that being said, I've also had the opportunity to explore quite a bit of different sports realms, modes of fitness, and athletic endeavors. And so, the coolest thing about anything that I like to do, and hopefully for you guys as well, is I am a big proponent of putting myself in positions in search of non-masterful endeavors, which the irony is I have the book Mastery right behind me by Robert Greene, but um, a jack of all trades is something that I really, really aspire to be. And, mastery for me, I hope my focus is going to be tailored specifically for what I'm doing today, which is taking what I think I'm already good at, which is the tangible and practical side of applying strength and conditioning and anatomy and physics, and then tying that into what I am most intrigued in, which is philosophy, spirit, and how I can use and merge the two to find and uncover what's buried underneath. And you're welcome. So, who am I? Bo Chris, strength conditioning coach. But why buried in the bones, and what is it exactly? Well, my plan is to cover fitness, training philosophies, mindset, and most importantly, honesty. And honesty being things that I don't believe are as prevalent today, and I don't think social media, and the irony is that here we are, you found me because of social media, but I do not believe social media, for the most part, the masses are not giving you guys and me and other people, other professionals, information that I believe to be true, good, and something that I believe is helpful to 99% of the world. And so, what am I seeing in today's world with fitness and all these ideas is that I think when people get on here and they speak, they imagine me, they get on there to talk about themselves or low key brag about themselves, but they also only preach what they think they know and they only speak to themselves. And so, if it was me, it'd be like me going on Instagram, knowing that there are people out there who cannot sit down properly or at all. They have to fall on the couch or they have to climb out of bed. Instead of considering what most of the world and the position they're in, it seems like the fitness input we're getting in today's society via Instagram is, the cool kids club. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my snatch PRs and my back squat routine and my upper body day and my high rocks training split. And it's like, that's cool. But why are you telling everyone to stay hard? And it's like David Goggins is great, and I'm sure he's helped a lot of people. But hey, man, like not everyone has 15 hours a day, and most of the advice given is not very good advice for people who get injured by putting their socks on. So I think there is a major drop off from the information we're being provided and the advice that's being given. And then there is the majority mass, it's like an ocean of people who need it the most. And how can I take what I would consider high level strength and conditioning, fitness insight, and then convince and help people take what is practical and simple and also encourage this mindset shift and to get out of the self imprisonment that we find in our day to day and apply this new mindset to their training. And we'll get into that in just a minute, but I think it's possible, and I cannot believe the oversight that the fitness community and other professionals have found themselves in. Not everyone can do a 40-yard dash, and not everyone should. And why isn't that okay? I get that that's what you're very comfortable with talking about in coaching, but not everyone needs to be doing F45. Not everyone needs to be doing CrossFit because it's not practical. Do I wish everyone could do that? Absolutely. But that's not the world we live in. And so why are we trying to force people to meet us where we're at? It's like, no, we do the opposite. We meet them where they're at. And so you can't do a back squat. Okay. Can you squat down on the box? Oh, it's too low. What about this high of a box? Great. We'll start there. And so fitness today, I think we can do better as professionals. And so the training and philosophies that I'll talk about are, I'll get into a lot of stuff. I'll get into, how endurance to me is something that is a dose of uh, possibly some explorative like ideas and some psychoactive um, chemicals in my brain, if you will. I'll get into how I can take those things and apply the training side and the ideas that come behind that and actually apply that to my day to day. And so the concept of doing hard things, which strength training and fitness is hard, but how does that subtle win and these small little micro wins add up into me deciding to put the dishes in the dishwasher? Waking up 10 minutes earlier or walking 10,000 steps a day. If I brush my teeth twice a day, then why am I not walking, 7 to 10,000 steps a day? It's like anything else. It's what we've been ingrained to know to be good for us, brushing the teeth. Why are not 10,000 steps a day like brushing our teeth? It's very simple things that for some reason we have not learned as a society. And it's because, well, we've not always been in a position where life's so damn easy that I don't have to do it. But, now that we are seeing the negative aspects of sedentary lives, for me, not only am I trying to take care of myself, but I cannot take care of others if I cannot take care of myself first. And that is something that I need to do to help my community, my family, and then lastly, I get kind of the selfish aspects of that. I get the fun things behind the hard work that come from it, whether that be aesthetics or just pride from the strength I gain. It doesn't really matter. There is the responsibility aspect, and then there is the rewards that I get to reap. But that should not take precedence over the first couple of reasons: family and community. So, what do I think? What does exercise do? And what is movement exactly? And I think what we need to start with is this problem solving idea. And what is the problem? And before we get too far into that, just because we have a problem does not mean you are a problem. And that does not mean that your ailments per se are these negative ideas. Let's generalize them and let's take ailment or problem and let's just not attach any emotion to it at all. Let's just say, for me, let me give an example on my physical limitations. I back in the day did a rim to rim to rim, which is a ultra endurance, 48 mile, 20,000 feet of elevation gain, little endeavor. But I actually tore my post-tibial tendon in my right foot. And so my foot kind of does this, it kind of turns out at all times. And so my ankle mobility is very poor. And that's just a part of it. It can't not get better. But what I have to do now is approach something as simple as ankle mobility as a problem to solve. And then now I use myself, the tool, to navigate that. And so if you're coming in with back pain, well, there's a few things I need to tell you before you introduce exercise or movement or training into your life. And that's, well, pain's very complicated. And I feel sorry for anyone who's been told pain has an exact reason to why it's happening. Even for those with bulging discs and herniations, stenosis, spondyes, it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people, I believe I read a study where over 60% of human beings in today's world over the age of 35 have had either a herniation, spondy, bulging disc, and some, I think 40%, did not experience pain at all. And so I think I was talking to a client of mine about this, but in the animal world, where they're not necessarily gifted with this cool thing, I don't know, we're getting kind of deep here, but maybe not. They have a soul, right? And they have just the subconscious ability to think about the pain they're in and categorize that pain and emotionally attach itself to that pain and have this sense of heightened awareness. We have that, and it's really fascinating, and it's still not very understood, which is why if someone has told you your back pain's happening for this, this, and this, there's a few things that we need to sort out. Well, it's like, who do we go to? Okay, if we went to a back surgeon, if you give anyone a hammer, they're going to find a nail. And then, although there is reason to be wary of said back pain, we cannot allow, I wish these folks had not introduced the idea of avoidance and, taking things out of your life and being very overly aware of how you live your life. Now, are there ways we can move a little bit better? And that's just physically and structurally? Absolutely. But I'm worried that these salesmen, all encompassing, I don't, trainer, physical therapist, chiropractor, surgeon, it doesn't really matter to me. If there is an absolution that you should not do this because of this, I think we should always, no matter who, no matter what, wrist pain, back pain, whatever, we need to take a step back and be like, is this reasonable? Because I think something that's more dangerous than if I had a bulging disc and went into deadlift, the the decisions that come or that are buried underneath that are fear and avoidance. And to me, that is possibly more cancerous and dangerous to my life and my future and any other thing I can get involved in down the road. And so, when has fear ever been a good thing? And doesn't mean that we can't be a little bit more conscious, but if you come in, like anyone, if we come in with the will to listen and the will to learn and approach it gently and approach yourself gently and allow you to explore the problem, that is how we can find not only self-exploration, but that's how we create some movement autonomy. And that is also how we're going to be able to play and explore senses and explore ourselves better. So that is the physical exploration, right? As I explore, I get introduced to new senses and I get to input in my brain that was good, that was bad. That is how we can create a sustainable pathway to introducing movement into my life. You know, new people, for example, almost always the first 3 to 6 months of training, and this is going to be really any sport based thing, but especially strength training, it's all going to be neurologically uh, inclined. So that means all of my gains, everything that I am getting better at in that first 3 to 6 months is getting my brain to fire in certain muscle groups or turn on certain muscle groups and get motor units engaged and synchronize muscle contractions with other muscles, like a squat. How can I turn off my hamstrings or get my hip flexors to pull me into a squat, keeping my torso vertical all the while breathing? That's hard. My brain will have to work through that before I ever can structurally load something. And I think that is something that really, really gets swept under the rug, especially for stuff on IG, Instagram, Twitter, X, or Facebook. Most people don't know what a squat is. Some of you listening may not know what that is. If you don't know it, imagine you're sitting down on the couch, but you sit down, but you hover your butt off the couch and then stand back up. That's a squat. Some people don't know that. And that's what's crazy to me is we're supposed to be these fitness professionals and people who are genuinely about other people and helping them and getting their lives improved and seeing them change not only in the weight room but taking those little lessons in the weight room and applying them to their everyday lives and picking up their sod outside planting their grass or picking up the soil and being able to garden correctly. We've lost that as fitness professionals. And so my goal is, how can I take this knowledge base and then streamline it in this big circle of this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason. The simplest thing is the best answer. How do you squat correctly? How do I educate my clients and members and people who are watching on how simple but yet difficult all of this is? With the problem being explored, there is also the subconscious, gains that I can make. And there's a study by Dr. Kelly McGonigal on the joy of movement in 2019, written in 2019. And she mentioned a study where these doctors from, I believe Wisconsin, they took two groups. They had three groups, sorry. They had a group run as hard as they could on the treadmill. They had a group jog and they had a group walk for 30 minutes. And they found that the endocannabinoid levels and the folks that jogged for 30 minutes at a sustainable, I believe it was like I would speculate zone 2-ish pace, had similar, if not greater levels of endocannabinoids, psychoactive kind of chemicals that happen from like marijuana use. They found those levels to be the same or slightly higher than those who are on a peak high from recreational marijuana or marijuana usage at all. I say recreational because it's legal in some states. But there's something to that. And I think one is I touch on the gentle approach, which I don't think everything has to be suffering. I don't think you need to sprint everywhere you go. Like it doesn't surprise me that the people who were running on the treadmill did not experience that kind of runner's high. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, I guess. And it also makes sense that people who aren't putting any effort at all don't experience anything. It's the people who move for 30 minutes and, their rate of perceived exertion out of 10 was like a 1. I don't think that's a life lesson in its own. It's like, how often does getting by with very little really improve you at all? So, the answer is like, oh yeah, something's better than nothing. It's like, well, if I want to really be kind, then sure. But if I want to be a professional and tell you how it is, that's the honest truth. Something's better than nothing. But for the sake of improvement and just from a literal standpoint, you got to put in a little effort. So with that psychoactive kind of idea, that tells me that, movement can be psychedelic. And that reminds me of the rim to rim to rim that I ran, and how I just remember, one, it was not very fun at all. Feel like I should say that very bluntly. Like, it was not very fun, and my effort level was extremely high, and I didn't have any feel good emotions. So if that is what marijuana highs are like, I hopefully never have one. And but what I do remember is my problem was my post tip, right? It tore. My foot was in a lot of pain. And no matter if you use strength training as your relative effort comparison here, for me, I was in pretty good shape, man. I'd been training really hard, and I've done a few ultra endurance events by that time. A half Ironman. I did a 31 mile event as well. But I think when people get into hardship and different avenues of challenge, such as rock climbing or ultra endurance or strength training. And strength training, let me say, if you've never done it before and you're starting at the age of 50 and you're unlearning 50 years of poor movement, I mean that's terrifying. I cannot imagine. And I mean that. If you are over the age of 50 and you started strength training, kudos to you. So I can't imagine psychologically it'd be any different than me at my age trying something new as well. That's very intimidating. Another ultra endurance event would feel the same. It's the same pathway, in my opinion. I think some have heightened senses and some have heightened, extremes. But no matter what challenges we choose to face, I think we're all trying to chase the same thing, and that is we're just trying to find a little bit of perspective. And along with that perspective, I get to increase my health, not just for myself, but if I'm doing it for the right reasons, I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for my community, perhaps my daughter, perhaps my kids, my mother, my family, my wife, even my dog. It's like my dog needs me. My God, what's he gonna do? Leo cannot take care of himself. He's an idiot. So if we are going to do this thing via movement, endurance, feats, endeavors, the exploration is not just the physical one, the physical problem, but it is the curation of problem solving my own mind. And I get to tap into what I would consider an unhealthy mindset. And for me, it was always quitting. Like, am I a quitter? Am I doing it for the right or wrong reasons? Do I have justification in this? And you're able to tell like quickly, even in like, ultra endurance is one thing, step by step. Okay, mile 30, it's like, okay, mile 31. It's like, should I quit? No. Should I quit? No. That happens like 40 times in like the next 60 seconds, and that happens for another 10 hours. But how many times do you think about quitting an ultra endurance event? Every single moment past mile one. And but that mindset, that pathway is very similar to folks who begin strength training, and I tell you 10 reps and you get to 8 and you get to decide if you're going to bust out the last two or not. Sometimes I'm counting, and sometimes I get to see the folks who, I think I'm going to stay at 8. That's fine, but talking about buried in the bones, you know, that is something, like we had an event, not an event, but in the gym, you know, we were doing an AMRAP, which stands for as many rounds as possible. And getting people to train for an AMRAP, having never trained at all, they don't quite understand the intensity that is required to yield any, physiological stimulus or outcome, like positive one. And I was like, man, what do I? Yes, I'm just gonna call them players. I'm the gamekeeper, and I'm gonna have them put their score on the whiteboard. And So we did. The team decided, okay, every member in here is going to get a whiteboard score. They're going to be players, and we're going to see what happens. Getting into that, there's a few people out there that are so damn competitive, they would lie about their score. It's like, keep in mind, we're 50 years old. It's like, that's something else. It's like, maybe you're not cheating reps, but you're cheating sets. And why are you competing with someone that you don't know? You probably don't know these people. You work at 5 p.m., this she works out at 6 a.m. Does it really matter? And that's why I love it so much. There's so many little life lessons that can be had and found in strength and conditioning, the gym, and how I move my body. So, with that being said, self exploration, physical exploration, every time I move my body and every time I find a problem, maybe I feel achy in the morning, maybe tomorrow morning you will, maybe tonight you might. Didn't mean to rhyme there. Yeah, I challenge you to see and explore your senses. Man, can I make this feel better? Do I really not need to not do anything? I remember reading a study at Lipscomb for a master's degree, and they took two sets of mice. And what they did was they took one group and they sliced their tendons, their Achilles, mice Achilles, and they sliced them. And then the other group, all they did was put a boot on, which pretty much means they immobilized that body part. And the group that had the sliced Achilles healed and had more muscle hypertrophy than the group who got booted, who had no injury at all. So I'm not a mouse, but I would speculate that it kind of matters on if you choose to do absolutely nothing. Nothing is never the answer. Nothing and doing nothing and sedentariness is probably not the answer. We already don't do enough. So, if I have, for example, my elbow dislocated, it, I would say three bones technically dislocated from each other. My annular ligament tore, my UCL tore, my humerus dislocated from my radius, and my radius and ulna had a sublux, so they kind of go whoosh, kind of like that. So my radius ended up on this side of my arm, and my bicep partially tore, my tricep partially tore, and that sucked. That kind of sucked, and it still does. But I'm not gonna allow that to not let me move. The first thing I did was get on a stair climber for 30 minutes with an immobilized elbow. I didn't do the first thing. I went to bed. The first thing I did. But after that, the next day I got on the stair climber. I can't imagine that doing nothing is going to help with fluid sitting inside of my elbow. And the best thing I can do is at least give myself a win and know that I'm not going to lose today. So win is quitting and losing. Uh, what is quitting? Always losing. Like, are you always losing when that decision is made? That is, that's a tricky one. When to quit, when to lose, and how a loss is sometimes a win. So for me, last year when that happened, I had a hard stop on what I would have considered my community at the time, and I still talk to a lot of the guys. Love them to death, they're awesome. But it was a hard stop, ironically, it's 1 week after I thought about this podcast. And maybe it was a sign. Maybe it was the universe telling me to slow down. I don't necessarily think so, but what's buried in the bones? How I decide to deal with that injury and then either whine about my lack of community afterwards or complain about the fact that it's not probable that that'll be a part of my life in the future. I could, in my opinion, if I quit and then decide to use this creative energy and explore new ways to not only have skill acquisition, but also mentally tell myself, this isn't going to be a part of your life anymore. But you have a choice to man up and choose to positively influence and impact people instead. And so instead of having selfish justifications for feeling lonely and lowly, instead I choose to be with you guys here today and It's never easy to make those decisions. Um, Sometimes losing is a necessary part of our lives. And, you know, whether you quit, is the quitting something that is going to benefit you in the future? It's like if you're pulling out of an investment, is that a good cost effective thing? Is the opportunity cost greater with wherever else you're putting your money? And so for me, is the opportunity cost of me staying in there and possibly injuring myself greater than what I could do with a healthy body, healthy mind, and a positive attitude that helps me reflect on those things and serve you guys today? So, yeah, what I think is something that I have had a problem with really in the fitness world, sport world, and maybe the social media is, unfortunately, podcasts are available to everybody, including me. And I might be a part of the problem, and I get that. But I think we have limited senses, and I think a lot of people move their mouth more than they move their body. And it's really hard to trust people who do not quite have a complete understanding of themselves. So move your body more. Brush your teeth, take your 10,000 steps. That is, I think, a super important thing that we do not do. And it's something that I hope to encourage you guys to do way more often. And I think we need to seek sensations more. And through those sensations, we'll be able to explore not only the physical ones, the structural ones, my ailments, getting past them, navigating those problems, and finding new opportunities for my body to move because it deserves to. And that's kind of the interesting thing is like, man, you literally have this structure, this vessel, right? And within it is you, and you get to articulate and build and grow and move how you want to with the body that you've been given, the one and only, the you're one of a kind. That's so damn corny. I'm not a corny guy, but it's true. I think you're just stuck. I think a lot of people are full of negativity. They are consuming not what's on the bookshelf, but what is on Instagram. And the algorithm loves you because you're eating it up, man. Like Facebook, politics, who cares? We should care a little bit, but it shouldn't be at the forefront of your mind all day, every day. You have people around you that need you at your best, and nobody is at their best when they're consuming negative stuff. I don't care. And that also encompasses the food, and that also encompasses, I would say, sitting down all day and swiping on Instagram is consumption. Getting on TikTok with your 7 hour attention or 7 second attention span, that's consumption. You're consuming things, and you probably get on the TikTok shop and you buy a bunch of shit that you don't need, and everything is consumption, and we are at the forefront of it. And the truth is, I think beyond your self imprisonment, you can uncover what's buried underneath, physically, spiritually, mentally. It's all there, and I'm going to start it with movement. And I think it's psychedelic, and I think there's room to improve no matter where you're at, whether you can squat on a box or not, or you can sit on a chair or can't. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you squat off 315 pounds. There are things you can do, and there are avenues to explore. Endurance, sports, kickboxing, um, shooting a bow, doesn't matter. I think we're going to together, hopefully as a community, and going forward, is my goal is not just to mend what is broken and escape our own self imprisonment, but my goal for us is we're going to expand our minds by exploring our bodies. And that's it. I think we need to move more. I think everyone needs to know what's buried underneath. And it's time. I'm out.